I want $200,000, but I won't tell my husband. Plus updates. Original post. I, 26 female, and my husband, 26 male, have been married for almost 2 years. For the past year, I've been the breadwinner, and I'm not okay with this. Hubby lost his job after some budget cuts, and since then, he's been doing nothing but play video games. At first, he went to interviews, but that stopped after 2 months. And no, he isn't doing any chores either. We used to split chores 50-50, but now he isn't even doing his 50%. So, I'm financially supporting both of us while also doing 100% of the chores. I've discussed this with my mother-in-law and father-in-law, and they had a talk with him. Father-in-law even got him a couple interviews that, by the way, he missed because he was playing and he forgot to go. 2 weeks ago, father-in-law called him and scolded him. Father-in-law told him he raised him better than to leech off me and not even help with household chores. He told him he needs to get his act together and start doing his chores and look for a job because a marriage is 50-50, and right now I'm doing 100% of everything. He ended the call by telling him he was very disappointed. My husband always had this thing about making his dad proud, so he started looking for a job and even went on 2 interviews. Now, last week, I went on a trip with some friends and we went to a casino where I won $200,000. I haven't told my husband, and I don't know if I will. I'm afraid if I do, he will go back to doing nothing, excusing that as we don't need money, that I could hire someone for the housework. Before you ask, our finances are separate and he doesn't have access to my bank account, so I don't think he will find out. I will also like to add that I want to use some of the money to pay my student loans. What's left after that, I want to put them in savings. We are discussing the possibility of having kids, and if we decide to expand our family, I want my kids to have a college fund. But I'm also reconsidering having kids with a man that needs to be scolded by his parents in order for him to do his part in the relationship. Now for the top advice before reading the update. Your finances aside, send your husband to therapy. He's horribly depressed. This is what I'm thinking. All these people are saying he's a deadbeat lazy bum, but she said he used to work and contribute to the household evenly. Also, that he thrives to make his dad proud. It sounds more like depression than this just being who he is. Exactly why I said this. If it were his personality, this would have always been the case, but the fact that there's such a big change is a huge tell. Honestly, I'm not really sure why people are telling you to baby your husband. If he has a problem, he needs to address it. I've been in the exact same situation, and it nearly freaking killed me, and he didn't give a hoot. All the attraction to him went out the window because he refused to help himself. A swift dose of reality will do the trick for most people. These are people, however, who, like OP's significant other, would rather leech off friends and family like a succubus rather than put in their fair share. Classic Reddit. Most people going straight to divorce him instead of advising to get him some therapy or psychological help. He might be depressed after losing his job, and I can say from experience that having your parents scold you might not be enough to get you to do better. Freaking hell. Imagine if every single relationship problem was resolved with a breakup. Reddit is full of virgins and people who've never been in a relationship. They have no idea what they're talking about. Now for the first update. I posted this in another sub, and someone made question if he was really laid off because of budget cuts or if that's a lie. So, I talked with one of his former colleagues and he told a different story. According to him, my husband left because I made enough to support both of us, so he didn't need to work. I went home but he was playing as usual, so I called for him. I think he forgot his door was open because I heard him tell his gaming buddy, "My witch is home." I lost it at that. I don't know how I managed to stay composed, but a lot of people pointed out that he may be depressed, so I tried to talk to him. This is how it went. Me, I'm very unhappy with how things are right now. I work to support both of us, and I'm also doing all the household chores. It's not fair. You have a gaming problem. I think you should go to therapy and maybe we can try couples counseling too. Him, I don't see the issue. I like games. So what? Me, okay. Have you found a job yet? Him, no. Me, I know you weren't fired. Why did you quit? Him, I didn't. After an hour, he finally admitted that he doesn't want to work, and he never looked for jobs either. All the interviews he went to were actually outings with friends. He doesn't want to work because we don't need the money. So I said, okay, I'm fine with being the sole provider, but then he needs to do the chores. He said no, that he would rather play games. So I handed him the divorce papers. He said I'm overreacting and that I would still work and do all chores if I was alone. So why can't I just do it? We got into a fight where I did end up telling him about the money. His reaction was exactly the one I was afraid of. He suggested getting a maid. So I'm currently staying with my sister. I'm not backing up with a divorce. And for those of you that are worried, he has no right over the money. We have a prenup, so after the divorce, each leaves with what's in our names. So he won't see $1. My lawyer reassured me of that. Second update. Hubby is crying, begging me to reconsider. He's promising to get a job and lay off on gaming. I don't know if I should laugh or cry, but damn, I don't believe anything he says. He also apologized for calling me a witch and swears he'll do all house chores and get a full-time job. It's kind of pathetic, but nonetheless, if divorce is the only way to get him to participate, I don't want to always need to print papers every time he isn't doing anything. I told him I'm not going to reconsider, because his actions showed me he isn't someone that I can count on. I want a family, not slavery. I want to be a mother, but for that, I need a partner that I can count on if I need someone to pick up where I slack. Safe to say, he left crying saying I don't love him and that no one will want me. Next story. My wife died 11 months ago and our lives are better. Yes, I am a monster for saying this. And yes, we have a young child together. About 11 months ago, my wife was killed in an auto accident that was not her fault. I won't give specifics for fear of being identified. My wife's mental health had steadily declined over the past 6 to 7 years. She had become a compulsive shopper, hoarder, depression, anxiety, verbally abusive to me, gaslighting, etc. This was not who I dated and married. Yes, I still loved her. When her mental health was great, best family unit in the world. But when she spiraled, it was just nasty the way she would treat us. Yes, she was in therapy and yes, she had medication. She was diagnosed as bipolar. We discovered suppressed childhood trauma in a therapy session. Not the sexual kind, but horrible parents. Recalling lack of food, but money for smokes. Living in a hotel for nearly a year. No Christmas presents. Parents fighting physically in front of her, etc. She had suppressed this and recreated different memories. The last 4 years were hell. Never knowing how she would be in the morning. Seeing her become hostile over me sneezing too loud, or our daughter flushing the toilet during her shows. I felt like a prisoner, and my child did her best to understand that mommy's brain doesn't work right. When I got a call that I needed to come to the hospital, I honestly thought she tried to end herself, and was hoping she did. When I got to the hospital, time froze. The doctor and the nurse brought me to a room. They said she died of blunt force trauma. I cried, but it was a cry for relief. When my mom brought my daughter home, she cried too. But I think for the same reason I did. Today, I am in a better place, and so is my child. We have dinners with no yelling. We visit family and friends without getting text accusing me of cheating. My child is not getting yelled at for not understanding her homework. Hell, she still gives me a hug and kiss when I drop her off at school. I have exited therapy, however, my daughter said she still wants to go, so she does. My daughter wants to know about her mom before her mental health issues, and that is how she will be remembered. She was given a proper burial buried next to her grandpa, and we visit the grave about once a week. We got a decent settlement for the accident, paid off our home, and I put the rest in trust for when the kid turns 18. I recently started dating a friend. It's so weird. I'm not used to normal dates or having another adult ask me how my day was. She made me breakfast, and I forgot what it was like to have someone care for me. Thank you for reading. I just came here to say that you're not a monster. It's hard seeing someone you love go through something like this. My mother is bipolar, and I have thoughts sometimes that definitely scare me. I'm glad you're happy now and can finally live the life you wanted. Sounds like wife was very bad and especially alarming that she was acting that way towards the child as well. From what I can see, she wasn't taking therapy/medication and other activities close enough to action. And the mistreatment started ramping up basically after they had a child together. Repeated false accusation of cheating, flying off the handle at minor inconveniences like they're horrendous, etc. are unacceptable, especially towards a child, and when showing no signs of stopping or the perp addressing them. At that stage of boundaries being consistently ignored or impossible to set, relationship has to end for the safety of the kid and their upbringing. Even without a kid, a relationship like that is rotten and must end. Victim doesn't deserve to be treated this way. Exposure and victimhood to DV severely harms children. And OP, if you haven't already, get your kid DV counseling/therapy. Otherwise, your kid is at risk of developing severe issues and mental illness. People like your wife are rarely just horrible with no trauma or illness of their own. There's almost always some underlying thing, like OP's wife's case, that influences it. But as difficult as it is, the behavior cannot remain in a relationship, especially if it's continuously escalating, and there's a refusal by that person to address the root causes and recognize what they're doing. At that mark, no one benefits at all from the relationship. The person's actions will get worse, and root trauma will be coped with by hurting others. Victim is traumatized by repeatedly being attacked, and child is traumatized to dangerous extents. I think you need to put the house in a trust for her too, since it was paid off with money you got for the settlement. Just in case you marry someone and anything happens to you, she will have rights to your house. I had not thought of that. Good idea. Also, if you haven't already, update your will now. That broke my heart to read, pal. Glad you're doing good now. I'm not asking to be an a-hole, but why couldn't you have left her? Because I loved her mainly. But also, I could not afford a divorce. She would have won alimony, and due to my work schedule, most likely full custody, making me a weekend dad. Last story. I have imaginary dates with my late husband every week. I just wanted to let this out. I've never told anyone about this, and I've never used Reddit before, so bear with me. I'm a 36-year-old woman, and I lost my husband 11 years ago. Every Saturday night, we would go out on date. We started when we were 16 and he got his license, every single week until we were 25 and he was taken from me. It was really, really hard for me. I had more than a few grippy sock vacations. I broke everything in my home out of sadness. Fortunately, it was after I moved a lot of his things to our bedroom, so nothing of his was harmed. I was in grief counseling for 4 years, until they finally gave me off to another therapist who I see twice a week. All I ever talk about is how much I miss my husband. The only thing that brings me happiness is my loyalty to him. It's something I'm very, very proud of. Even though he's gone, I still wear my rings, and I've stayed 100% faithful to him, and I'm going to continue to do that for the rest of my life. It makes me happy when I think about it. One day, when I see him in heaven, I'll be able to tell him I stayed faithful to him, and I'm still his wife forever. I have his senior portrait on my bedside along with his ashes. It's the first and last thing I see every day. One thing that helps me cope with it is kind of weird. I have imaginary date nights with him. I put on his favorite dress, I'll put on my makeup and do my hair. I cook one of his favorite meals. I make both of us a plate and I just sit there and eat. And I pretend he's across from me and we're eating together. Then I pour both of us a glass of champagne. I've always hated the taste, and before he passed, I was 100% sober my entire life. But it makes me feel like I'm connected to him when I drink it, as he loved champagne. I'll pretend he's drinking it too and we'll get a little tipsy together. Then I'll take him upstairs and go into the bathroom and put on some lingerie for him. Then he watches me take it off, and then I go into the bottom of my drawer. And I have a toy that's the same size as his member, and I use it and pretend it's him and we're being intimate. I moan his name really loud when I do it too. Then the next morning I wake up and I clean everything up. I clean up his food that obviously was never touched, and his full glass of champagne, and I go about my day. I know it seems crazy, but it's something that brings me joy. It makes me happy. And please don't try to convince me to not stay loyal to my husband. Staying loyal to him brings me true happiness. And if you have a problem with that, please just keep that to yourself. I'm sorry. I feel really sad reading this. Love has such patience, and that's why love is beautiful and sad at the same time. Opie, do whatever makes you happy. No one is gonna judge you. You live your life the way you want it. If you want to have dates with the love of your life, do it. If you want to love him until the last day of your life, love him as much as you want. At my first big kid job, I worked closely with a bookkeeper, a lovely woman, and a great painter whom I adored. Her husband had died many years before our meeting, and while she spoke of him often enough, she only ever spoke of his death once in the time we knew each other. I don't remember the conversation exactly. I just remember her saying that he had been sick for a while there, but now he's just invisible. That struck me, and so did the way she said it. Like his death was just an aesthetic side effect of an otherwise benign condition. One they laughed about together, like a little inside joke between them. She didn't elaborate beyond that, and she didn't need to. It was plain on her face that the love they shared was just as alive in that moment as it was before he up and turned invisible on her. I'll never know the story of their relationship or how she arrived at her perspective on the loss she had suffered. But I do know that whenever I'm faced with loss or grief, I think about Mary and her invisible husband, and I can't help but smile. I think connections between people have a much longer shelf life than people themselves. And with that in mind, I hope you continue to enjoy the heck out of your date nights. My husband died a year ago, and in my dreams when he's there, it doesn't feel like a dream. It feels like he's actually there. We are always talking about something. We did a lot of that. It feels like I should be able to touch him, but I can't. All those weird things that make a dream are never there when he is. I wake up from the dream and it feels like he's probably still there. I just can't see him anymore. This is why I'm scared of getting too attached. This is just so sad and heartbreaking. Hey dude, don't let it stop you from forming close and beautiful connections in your life. It can sometimes hurt to love something/someone so deeply, but the rewards outweigh it, and ultimately nothing is permanent. I'm more scared of never forming such connections. How fortunate are we to have something that makes saying goodbye so hard?